Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the interview room. It's always an honor to be invited by Vinnie Politan of CourtTV to be on his show as an expert guest. Here's another recent segment that I was asked to weigh in on. I hope you enjoy it. And if you haven't had an opportunity, would you please consider subscribing to our channel? Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. And we begin this hour with a story that everyone is talking about. It's popping up on everyone's social media feed as well. It's this search for a 22-year-old young woman. Her name is Gabby Petito. Let me show you some photos that she posted on Instagram. She's missing tonight. She took off in a van with her boyfriend / fiance. They were going on this wild adventure. They were going to spend a bunch of months seeing incredible things around the country, taking photos, posting YouTube videos, kind of documenting this amazing trip that they were taking together. But that's not how it all turned out. At some point, the posts stopped, the videos stopped, and the communication from Gabby back home to her family also stopped. But I'll tell you what didn't stop was her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. He kept driving back from the West Coast, and he drove all the way back to Florida without her and in the van that is registered to her, which would make it her van. So they go out together in her van. He comes home alone in her van. And by the way, he's not talking to anyone. No one. Not her family, not investigators, certainly not the media. Our great affiliate, WFTS, down in Tampa, reporter Heather Lee has more on this story.
Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito lived here with his family at their Northport, Florida home. The two set out on a cross-country road trip. Laundrie arrived back here September 1st in Petito's 2012 white Ford Transit van alone. 10 days later, Petito's family reported her missing, and Laundrie has yet to say a word to police about where she is. The family is asking us to use video and images from Gabby's social media accounts in an effort to find her. Grand Teton National Park. Gabby Petito's family say that's where she was when they last spoke to her August 25th. 2,300 miles away in Northport, Florida, Brian Laundrie, Petito's 22-year-old boyfriend, is not speaking to police, even though he spent the last 4 to 5 months traveling with her on a cross-country road trip.
I think we're just pleading with him at this point to please speak with us. We need to understand those details. You know, they put out a release yesterday saying they remain in the background. That is not good enough. We need the details.
At this time, none of the Laundrie family is going to issue a statement except through myself.
Okay. Why is that?
Because I've advised them that that's the way it needs to be.
Petito's family officially reported her missing September 11th. 10 days prior, Laundrie arrived at the Northport home he shares with Petito and his parents in her van alone.
We definitely processed that vehicle yesterday with the FBI. Certainly, there was some material in there that we'll be going through. I don't know that we're at a situation of releasing all of those details.
We're now learning the couple may have been fighting during their trip. They made a stop in Moab, Utah on August 12th. A witness told the police he saw the two arguing over a phone. He says it seemed Laundrie had locked Petito out of the van and saw her hitting his arm and attempting to climb through the driver's window. The two eventually drove off. Police say they caught up with Laundrie and Petito. She was, quote, crying uncontrollably, and they both told police that Petito suffers from serious anxiety. The report goes on to say issues had been building between the two after spending so much time traveling together. They insisted they were fine and did not want to be separated. Police decided what happened between the two did not, quote, escalate to a level of domestic violence as much as that of a mental health crisis. They put Laundrie in a hotel anyway and let Petito take the van.
I just wish people would understand that there are two families involved here, and it is not easy for either one of them.
Petito's family have released a statement saying they are growing more desperate as they frantically search for answers. They say in part, quote, Brian left Gabby in the wilderness with grizzly bears and wolves. Whatever happened in Wyoming happened. The only thing you can control is what you do now. Tell us where Gabby is.
I think with every minute, more details come in, more things are worked on. is, I can tell you right now, we do not have, a definitive answer here. But they are working on it.
If you have any information about this case, you're asked to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. We have posted that to our website, abcactionnews.com. In Northport, Florida, Heather Lee, ABC Action News.
He's not talking. But investigators are working hard, absolutely working hard. We spoke with Gabby's stepfather last hour. He's out in Wyoming acting as a liaison with all of law enforcement and the family, getting that information as the family desperately waits to hear something about what happened to Gabby. All right, let's bring in our investigators tonight. Joining us in Charleston, South Carolina, host of the Interview Room with Chris McDonough, and he's also a former homicide detective, Chris McDonough, and in San Diego, California, retired director of the San Diego Police Department Crime Lab, Jennifer Shen. Great to have you both back. Chris, let's start here. Let's start in Wyoming. It seems like there's a search. This is where the family believes was the last known place she was, based upon a text message that they got from her. How do you even begin that search? Where do you start?
Yeah, so one thing a lot of folks aren't really aware of, and we actually saw it in another case recently, that Yellowstone has a very robust video management system throughout that park. Now, cell coverage is, spotty at best, but the video management that they have set up is quite impressive. So that would be the first place you want to see, take a look at to see if they did any adventures around some of those controlled sites. Grand Teton, you lose cell coverage pretty quickly around that area. But so the first place I would start is at Yellowstone and then work your way out of the opposite side to the Grand Teton area.
Jennifer Shen, the van, they were living the van life. So they're in that van and going around the country. He drove the van back, but that van is now in the custody and control of law enforcement. What are they doing with that van right now? What do you think they can find there? These two were living in that van. We've seen it in the videos that she was posting.
Right. So the traditional thing of looking for proof that someone was present somewhere they shouldn't be is not going to be an issue here. But I think they're probably tearing it apart, looking for any sign of violence. I would start there. Is there any blood? Can they find anything that might indicate there was a violent act? There's all sorts of things you can do, even if he's cleaned up the van, to see underlying leftover blood, for instance. So I'd be looking for that, and I'd be looking for things that belong to her that if she went off on her own, she would have with her. Anything that you can find that would give you some electronic signature of where she's been or where the van's been. So that's something else I'd be looking at. License plate readers, there's GPS, tracking devices. There's so many things that we can do now just to try to figure out where he was and where that van was that might lead you to where she is or was.
Well, we also learned today in great detail that there were problems, and there was a blow up, and it did get physical to a certain extent. Police in Moab, Utah, spoke with both Gabby and with Brian. We've got our hands on the body cam footage. We're going to show a lot of it to you next hour, but I want to show some of it to you now, where police are talking to Gabby. Let's watch.
I've decided I am not going to cite you for domestic violence battery, okay? It was only going to be a Class B misdemeanor. However, the domestic violence portion of it enhances it. Makes life a major pain in the butt, especially you're 22, right? So I'm choosing not to cite you today. So you are not going to be charged with it. All right? But this is what I do have to do. I am separating the two of you tonight. Okay? I want you guys both to be tonight away from each other, relax, breathe, crying, because there's no reason to be crying now, okay? I understand that this can feel like it's a nightmare, but you're coming out as the golden flower on top of it, okay? So, you're going to be taking the van tonight. I and you're going to go somewhere else, I am going to get him lined up with a hotel room tonight. I want you guys to stay away from each other. For both of you guys' sake. From what you told me and what he told me, you guys have a bunch of little things that are building up, and finally the little string that you guys were tight walking on the road tonight. Does that sound about right? So, I just want everybody to breathe, get a chance away from each other, go eat a meal, talk to your parents, whatever it is you got to do.
Chris McDonough, things were not good. I mean, she's an emotional mess. The officer there saying, I'm not going to cite you for domestic violence, but it came out in the conversation that she had slapped him and he ended up getting scratched in the face. He's also on video saying that he kind of pushed her away. Things are getting physical inside that van. And that's August 12th. So with that information and that date and everything else, what do you do with that? And where does that lead you in this investigation?
Yeah, so that's a really good piece of evidence for her mental state and his, right, Vinnie? I mean, we have now a clear picture of just exactly how she was feeling, and him, quite frankly. So you tie that together in relationship to not only that behavior, that's actually in the middle, but you tie it to his post behavior. And so, he just takes off with her van at some point, and now, she has vanished. So you would want to ask him, and obviously he's lawyered up at this point, but there is a pressure point you have there. You actually have him in her van. So if worst case scenario did he steal the van? So that's still out there as an investigative tool. And then, of course, when you get the CAS team in there from the feds, who are going to analyze all the cellular, information that Jennifer was talking about, you may be able to put some pressure on him on that side.
Yeah, Jennifer, I see this August 12th. To me, this is really like where you begin a timeline. How do you go from what's happening here on the 12th to all of a sudden she's not communicating with anyone anymore? And I think a big piece of that comes back again to her cell phone. I mean, she's prolific on Instagram, and also, will text her parents and had been communicating. Is there any way to determine whether she is sending a text message or someone who grabs her cell phone is sending her text message? Is there any way to forensically look at the records if you don't physically have the cell phone itself to figure things out? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions tonight.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that her mom thought the last text wasn't from her. And probably the best way to determine that is going to be based upon what the mom knows her daughter is like and how she interacts and how she speaks via, texting, etc. So other than that, though, there really isn't any way to prove that forensically unless you can show that she was somewhere other than her phone at the time that text was sent. So I did think, listening to the officer talk to them, that it's going to be hard for them to know they let them go. But it was kind of struck again about how officers have to be in these situations where they have to make decisions about what the best thing to do is. And this one was trying to be so kind and helpful and caring for these two young people. And of course, it didn't obviously work out very well. So I just thought that was very striking.
Absolutely. Let's take a listen to a little bit more of that body cam footage here. You've got an officer speaking with Brian Laundrie.
I'm not upset with her. She got worked up and she had her phone in her hand and her keys and everything. And she wanted, not her keys, her rings. She had her rings, her phone. And I was holding on to the keys because I didn't want to go anywhere. And my big fear is, I don't have my phone. I don't have a phone. So she goes off without me. But all right, I'm on my own.
One thing struck all of us in the newsroom, Chris. There he's saying, I don't have a phone, but he has a phone. What? Yeah. I didn't understand that. And even in the video, I think there's a point where they're reminding him, or she's reminding him, to get his cell phone charger. He's got a cell phone. He's saying he doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, and that's a great catch, Vinny. I mean, from the team there, that does, cause one to think about, well, how deep is this fight? in relationship, and is he already pre-planning some concepts in relationship to, how things are going to go down here? He's also got a huge drive ahead of him, and it looks like right now, if he is a person of interest, based on some of the evidence that I'm even hearing here, it might be smart for his attorney to step up with, allowing him to talk before all of this, cell phone evidence and the additional potential video evidence shows up.
Yeah, Jennifer, if in fact, we know something happened to Gabby, and it's not something good, right? Because she's not communicating with her family, and it's not like she doesn't like her family. She loves her family. Her family loves her. I mean, right. It's crystal clear there. So something happened here, and it just seems that this is one where investigators should be able to put these pieces together at some point. I mean, we're not talking about professional criminals here, people who are used to kind of going off the grid, and you know what I mean? These are people who, something happened here, and we saw a little piece of it on the 12th, but something is happening here, and I've got to think that even if you're driving around in the middle of nowhere, investigators are going to be able to put together a real good timeline of some of the things that happened, especially with Brian and the van and the drive and these cell phones.
Yeah, I would think so. One of the other things that struck me was the fact that I think the witness saw that he locked her out of the van and she was trying to crawl in through the window. I mean, that's pretty extreme behavior, because it would be very scary. The concept of being left out there in the wilderness where it's hot in the middle of, in the middle of nowhere alone with maybe a phone and nothing else. That's pretty terrifying. And so the fact that this argument got that far certainly indicates that he may have engaged in some sort of behavior that was dangerous to her. So whether he killed her or not, he may easily, based upon that behavior alone, have done something that put her in a dangerous position, which is why he doesn't want to talk about it, I'm guessing. Yeah. It just seems so odd that he drove home in her van and he's just not saying anything. It just seems so strange to me.
Yeah, you know what else I find fascinating about this guy, Brian Laundrie, is you watch these videos and stuff, he's so concerned about the environment, wants to protect Mother Earth from the plastic, but is doing nothing. Zero, zippo, nada, niente, to help the woman that he purports to love.
Right.
Right? Oh, I don't drink water out of plastic bottles because I'm that kind of guy. But when the woman that I was engaged to is not seen and her family is desperate for an answer, and now the entire country is looking for her, I'm going to say nothing. But if you throw that plastic bottle down on the ground or make me drink from a plastic bottle, I'm going to speak up. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes about his level of character and depth. Anyhow, that's just me, sorry. All right, our investigators are staying with us, Chris McDonough, Jennifer Shen. When we come back, we're going to Low Country, South Carolina. The Murdaugh family murder mystery. Another bizarre twist in all of this. Alec Murdaugh, the man whose wife and son were executed and killed. Now we're learning that there was a housekeeper that died, and they're investigating that death. Meanwhile, he was in court today for hiring someone to kill him. What? We'll try to make sense of it, if we can, next.